This is Spectrum Voices Conversation here every Sunday, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. UK time, and 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, United States time difference. And this is the Facebook post sharing part of the broadcast. And what I'm starting on is something light. It's from the Autistic teacher, and it says that to be neurodivergent often means we have traits that contradict each other. And the picture, which is a sort of table, kind of shows you descriptions of ADHD in relation to autism, and autism relates to ADHD, how different they are. So I'll just go through because it's quite short. ADHD, making spontaneous plans with autism, gets upset if those plans are disrupted. They say ADHD, struggling to organise, but autism has a need for things to be in order. ADHD says impulsively making purchases for a new hyperfixation. Under autism, it's hyperfocus on researching the purchases. ADHD, struggling to be on time. Autism, struggles when other person is a few minutes late. ADHD, hyperfixating on a wide variety of subjects. And autism, having long-term special interests. Under ADHD, forgetting steps and plans. Under autism, needing every step to be followed perfectly. And the last one of each, ADHD, wanting new experiences, and autism, wanting predictability and sameness. It's a bit stereotypical, but it's trying to illustrate a point about how we have traits that contradict each other in the neurodivergent world.
I think the hyperfixating on a wide variety of subjects and then having long-term special interests, that like juxtaposition, contradiction, whatever you want to call it, is actually the subject or the theme rather. I'm writing a piece for Autistic Revolution magazine about special interests, and that is very much the motif because I'm not like a data collector or a collector of things in that kind of stereotypical, are you like trains kind of crap? But there's a kind of loose theme running through my fixations. Um, so that's it. Yeah, it's just interesting to see it kind of laid out like that. Because as I've come to the realization that I'm also ADHD, I have these two ways of looking at my behavior, the way I am, what I do, why I do it, how I do it. And it's like, oh, which one's more dominant in this situation? Just from like purely interest, a sort of meta point of, I think I'm kind of lucky actually in that most of mine tend to support rather than oppose each other. But I know for other people, it can be a real issue. With this wanting to make spontaneous plans, but then the autistic side goes right, but we don't know exactly what's happening at every single stage, and that internal struggle between two parts of your brain.
I'm not even sure if ADHD are different some of the time.
No, I don't think they are. I think they're the same neurotype. But I say this all the time. In 30 years, we will see these as the same as a continuum.
Yeah. I mean, I make spontaneous plans, but I also get upset if the plans are disrupted. That's line one.
Mm. Yeah.
I struggle to organise sometimes, but I also have a need to have things in order, and I'm very good at, I impulsively make purchases for a new hyperfixation. That's absolutely true. But I also hyperfocus on researching the purchases. They don't seem as though they're against each other a lot.
Yeah. It's usually you'll research the hell out of something, and then for absolutely apropos of nothing is when you'll go and buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or why have I ended up suddenly researching this thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
Hyperfixating on a wide variety of subjects, yes. Having long-term special interests or long-term passions, yes. Forgetting steps in. I don't think I need both labels. It just seems to me as though saying this out loud in front of a psychiatrist, they would just say, oh, you need both labels, Jules. You can have ADHD and autism and, you've got a mixture of the both. But I don't know. Other people will feel differently, I suppose.
I can see why currently we have them as two conditions and a list of sort of traits for each one. But I think what underlies those is more developmental things like executive function development. The more I'm reading about executive function development, the more I see that that is actually the root of a lot of things in both of these conditions. And from a kind of treatment or how the fuck do I get myself to work a bit better as an adult human point of view? It's in both cases, it's about like executive function. It's not about like managing a particular trait. It's about managing the thing that it's like sorting out your operating system rather than just going, oh, I think I'm going to try a different version of this software. I think that's a slightly better way of expressing that. Yeah. See, I did one of my special hyperfixations is going on about executive function and how ADHD and autism are actually the same neurotype. So I will shut up now so we can move on.
I think the labels come from the need for other people to give us labels. I don't think they come from us, do they?
Well, it depends. We kind of discussed this before in terms of labels. It's like if you put a label on yourself, it's more like getting an answer or an identity rather than putting a label on yourself to be criticised. It's more like to help you move forward. But if other people are putting labels on you, that's different. That's just them using a way to pick on you or just for the sake of what they think of you and what their label is to them. It's a strange one at times.
I mean,
One
the
of the things
labels
sorry.
have they're a way of conveying meaning, aren't they? Like I call myself a forager, and when I tell people I'm a forager, they understand what that means. They know that I go out in the woods on my own with a basket and a pair of secateurs. So if I tell people I have ADHD and I'm autistic, like I'm telling them something about myself without listing every single thing. Labels are effectively, they're just descriptors. It's when people weaponize them and turn them into ways to hurt people that's the problem, I think, anyway.
Wow, I love what you just said. I've got to try and remember that. Anyway, what I come away with from this post is I always want to see what the autistic teacher writes. I just think, the posts that you find from the autistic teacher are always really helpful.
The next one is actually what we've talked about not too long ago, is the podcast recording from 2 weeks ago, the live Unmasked Facebook sharing from the 3rd of December. And the topics include the Neurodiversity Manitoba, Autistic Revolution, Cheshire, Autism Practical Support, the Autistic Teacher and Autistic Girls Network. And it has been shared by the autistic teacher because what we discussed on that particular broadcast was eye contact, and that's what the autistic teacher shared. And obviously, I thanked them for doing so. The next one, what I've shared is from our Artistic Minds, Chris Packham documentary on the BBC, and what I've shared is the video of Murray, one of the participants who's a non-speaker autistic, and it's a video version of showing given his life experience and basically saying that we've kind of shared before is just because someone doesn't speak doesn't mean they haven't got anything to say.
I'm intending to take the audio from In Our Artistic Minds that I've recalibrated with new software, and we've already got reactions that we recorded, so I'll be putting them out during radio days and also as podcasts later on. So it's been a very useful framework for us, those two programs, to start our conversations.
The next one is from Autistic Revolution. They're a digital magazine, one developed by autistic and otherwise neurodiverse people. And they're currently developing their second issue, which is focusing on community and belonging, which is planned to be out in mid-February. And what they're saying is, what does community and belonging mean to autistic folk? Does it exist? Have we ever experienced a sense of belonging? What would this look and feel like for us? How would you illustrate, create, or capture this? Are there any autistic-led groups or individuals who have created enabling and neurodiverse affirming spaces, creating an authentic community? How did they achieve this? Let's create an issue which celebrates folk who enable but also highlight how much work there is left to do to stop isolation and loneliness.
Do we count as that? I mean, the whole start of Autistic Radio was from us talking with each other. It was taking the conversations that we were having with each other as a sort of self-help group, in addition to the ELAS self-help group and the Autism Network's ANS's forum, so that other people could then listen to it or experience it, even if they didn't want to get involved with it. So maybe we counted one of these groups.
I think we probably straddle the definition, but as we were talking about earlier, we have difficult conversations, and we address difficult subjects, and I think that sometimes means that in terms of being a quote unquote safe space, it's not always a safe space for everybody. That doesn't mean that the intention isn't there, and we're not intending to be a harmful space, but I think we kind of straddle the definition a little bit. We've got a foot in the neurodivergent world, and we kind of have a foot in the scary bit as well. I think as a group, we are a community in terms of representing that, extending that to all our listeners. I think it's a bit more nebulous.
Yeah, we don't have programs that are the touchy-feely kind of programs that would fit that yet. But, there's time. That might develop.
Oh yeah, it's all an evolution, isn't it? Oh, it's all a revolution, rather. I should say that's much more snappy.
And Justin in text is saying that he agrees that we're straddling the line. And also his big smiley face and thumbs up to Autistic Revolution magazine.
Yeah, but it's a strange one what we do. I mean, we do, in a way, create a safe space for maybe ourselves in a way, but because we're broadcasting and people can hear us and people can see the stuff that when I put on Facebook, it's not like you're a safe space for away from everybody, or there could be someone that challenges you. So I'm not saying it's a dangerous place, but it's like there's going to be challenges, because that has happened, and that's fair enough that it has happened. I mean, it's always going to happen depending on the topic. So I totally agree with what's being
Yeah.
said.
I think the idea of a safe space is one where there aren't challenges. I can see the point of safe spaces, absolutely. Like, we all need to be in, at times, or actually for most of the time, I need to be somewhere where I'm not being challenged. My safe space in terms of in my head, or, physically sitting in my room and not out on a bus. For me, on a bus is not a safe space. I think we're kind of safe-ish, like we're safe adjacent, but there will be things that challenge, and that's not a bad thing. It's just something to know, really. It's just yeah, we're absolutely not a dangerous space, but there are things where we do challenge, which is good.
Yeah, if we go to what their definition is, though, Autistic Revolution is talking about what does community and belonging mean to autistic folk. And I think safe spaces goes under the belonging, but community also goes under the slightly outside the safe space, the discussing our autism and discussing the difficulties and sharing our problems to get empathy with other people and have other people recognition as a community. And that's not safe, is it? So maybe we do come under it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah,
Wow.
the whole definition of community. The whole
I made an
definition.
interesting point. Brilliant.
You make many interesting points, Jules, but no, you just that really sparked a thing in my brain. That community, it is by definition, it's made up of all people that share some kind of commonality, and that always comes with challenges. Yeah.
I think the other thing and what they've posted there is neurodiverse affirming spaces creating an authentic community. And now I'm wondering, are we a neurodiverse affirming space? And I would say, personally, for me, yes, I feel as though we are a neurodiverse affirming space. But then we come across the definition of neurodiversity affirming and neurodiversity and an affirming space. And all of those concepts are looked at differently by people. And some people have a kind of orthodoxy about what those things look like. And they have to be a certain way. And I don't think we fit quite that. I think we're a bit more challenging to that. We're still open to working out what those things are. Whereas I think there are people who have already decided what they are. And they say they can define them. That doesn't work for me at the moment. But, things might change. I might just be green,
The next one is from Autistic Support Community. And they're a blogger. Late diagnosed autistic, ADHD, 2 sons, writer, blogger, public talks, autism, mental health, bullying. And what they're saying is, what they've shared is, autistic people often need long periods of time to recharge their batteries, and respecting this difference can really help, especially after work or the school day, when they are truly overwhelmed and close to meltdown even. Sometimes those after-school clubs can get in the way. My own lad was very sad and stressed at school for the reason he needed at least 2 hours to unwind and simply be left alone. He would normally play on his Xbox, and bit by bit he would come down and chat, even invite me to watch him play, and we could chat and have fun. Only then could we contemplate doing his homework. Rest came first always. Brian. Credit Life of an Introvert. I can relate to that.
Nice way of expressing it.
Totally.
I'm not angry, I'm just recharging my batteries. I think that's actually something I experience, that people do think I'm angry when my face goes into resting bitch face. And I can't put any more effort into making expressions, or the face dance, as I've learned to call it from Liz. It's a difficulty people have with the difference that we are, isn't it?
People, they'll come and seek you out and go, "Are you all right?" And you're like, "I was, and now you're here, and I'm not. Can you fuck off?" Like, I'm
Well, I'll tell
taking
you what,
myself
that does sound
away.
angry if you say that.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. But then at that point, I have become angry because my solitude, my recharge time has been interrupted.
Yeah, I get
Yeah,
the point. I was
yeah,
okay until I was disturbed.
yeah.
This
And then
is an
people go, "Oh,
interesting.
it's nice of you to join us when you come back," which I think was in a post that we shared last week about Christmas. Like, when people do take themselves off to recharge, don't make a big thing out of when they come and rejoin the group, and don't go and find them. Just respect the fact that they have needed to go and spend a bit of time on their own.
Yeah, I think we need to reiterate that, don't we? It is Christmas coming up. There's a lot more pressures on us around Christmas. It's almost like birthday multiplied, isn't it? Birthdays are bad enough when you're the center of attention.
Yeah.
And at Christmas, kind of, there are so many things that we must do or have to do. And it's all too much, allowing us to not take part in some things, and perhaps even consider yourself, if you're not autistic, giving yourself the permission to not take part in everything might be useful.
Yes, very true. I mean, if you're busy during the day and you're amongst a lot of other people, either by travelling to somewhere where you may be on your own, but you're travelling to somewhere amongst people, and then you're amongst people in there, and then you're travelling back amongst people, And then it's just that chance to get a bit of solitude and recharge the batteries to get away from all the senses, the sensitivities, just a bit of quiet and calm. And if you're lucky, like I am myself, being on your own, I live on my own, so that's helpful in that way. It's just, even just sitting for maybe 20 minutes to half an hour and just recover. And sometimes I even go for a sleep. It just depends what kind of day it is. I certainly felt I needed that after when I used to do Oxfam, because as good as it was just very busy all throughout the day, and then I was in a busy place. Nice place, but just busy and a lot going on. So I could totally identify with that.
That's not just an age thing, is it? You're absolutely certain that you're relating that to your autism and not just the fact that you're in your 40s now.
No, I've been like that for years. Because a lot of the time when I used to go to other places, I was going to the city of Glasgow, and it's just too many people for me. Although it doesn't have to be Glasgow, it could be the local towns, nearby, or even my local town I live in, Alexandria. It's just sometimes 3 people is one too many. In fact, maybe even 2 people. So no, I may be becoming grumpier right enough as I grow older into my midlife, but I certainly have always felt I needed that calm down time, definitely. The next post is from Scottish Autism charity organisation. It's been Scotland's autism charity for over 40 years. And what they've shared is basically they've been round football grounds just to help highlighting the recruitment drive for their services. This one in particular with the Motherwell Football Club in Lanarkshire. Their colleagues Ailey and Gary joined the supported individuals gig in Chris to check out the fantastic pitchside advertising board which showcases these opportunities.
What are these opportunities? They're recruiting. What is it? They're recruiting to get more people working for them, or recruitment drive for our services.
Right, let's have a look. Right, I'll have a look.
We are delighted to be working with Motherwell to help highlight our recruitment drive for our services in Lanarkshire. So, is the recruitment drive for people to use the services or provide the services? I'm guessing it's to provide the services. They need more people in Lanarkshire to train with Scottish Autism to help autistic people. Yeah?
Yeah, I've just clicked into it actually, and they're looking for autism practitioners for South Lanarkshire. And it's full and part-time positions.
Well, maybe I could suggest that they look amongst the people that they are already supporting who are autistic and look at those as potential recruit workers for their recruitment. They have a whole huge pool of bodies of people who are generally unemployed and would love to do something that they have a passion about. And autism is probably something that they have a passion about. So maybe they should look closer to home, Scottish Autism, and look at your autistic people for recruitment.
Yeah.
Just having a look at the recruitment page, I think that they're looking for people to provide one-on-one support to autistic people. So say somebody needs help navigating public transport, just finds it overwhelming, needs somebody there to do, whether it's interacting with the ticket machine or the ticket person, or making sure they're on the right platform, that kind of stuff. I think that seems to be
an autistic person who's found that a difficulty in the past.
Well, yeah.
It's all about those kind of qualifications and things like that get in the way of things like that. It's like there's certain things that they would open to. I'm not picking Scottish Autism, but organisations, charities in general. It's like to cover their own backs, they need to find someone that's got the relative qualifications that they've studied for at a university or whatever, for want of a better term.
Yeah, I think the senior one buys services, I think, or manages the stuff. I'm just kind of reading crazy. I mean,
yes, I can understand that if you're in a senior position, you might need qualifications to do that and might need to have learned some stuff. But the majority of stuff is very simple, down-to-earth, basic, practical things. And it's them that are gatekeeping and deciding that people need qualifications for this. If they think people need training, that's great. They should train. But just using qualifications as a filter method seems inappropriate. They should understand things better, shouldn't they?
There's probably the CQC and governmental level stuff defining who can and can't work, in certain roles, defining what. What I'm saying is, I don't think it's Scottish Autism that's making the decision that you have to have this qualification to do this job. I think that's decisions made higher up.
Yeah,
But
Scottish government probably because of the
Yeah.
funding. It all comes down to that, unfortunately.
But all these things are mechanisms that are created that can be worked at,
Mm.
Yep, we can start a revolution very soon, Julian. Yeah, you are absolutely right. Yeah.
I just, who can help other people better than people who've experienced the problems, especially the simple stuff? Why can't they make a position that is a few hours a week for somebody to help another person, and it helps them both?
Yeah. Peer support, I think, works so much better in terms of actually making a difference in someone's life and empowering them to take things on themselves. Mm.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The peer support, it's, well, let's just say, an individual, example. The thing that eased my mind and helped me through a lot was the peer support, the peer discussion with other people, through groups and meeting up. And even though, it was through Strictly Autistic Society that I was in this social group and I was firstly diagnosed all those years ago. But it was like speaking to others with the same diagnosis and had similar sort of experiences to what you're relating to because you felt so alone on it. And then the understanding was there and sharing and even giving a bit of advice or even just kind of making not a laugh of it, but being jovial around talking about it is very helpful. So there is always that. It will certainly help a lot of people in the same position. The next one is a podcast recording from the live Unmasked from the 26th of November. We do the Facebook as we're doing just now. And what we talked about then, just the topics, the organisation and bloggers, etc. we discussed then was Neurodiversity Manitoba, Gen X Autistic, Christine Armstrong, Autism Adventures Abroad, Jason's Connection, Effie Purple Bean Autistic Artist, Autistic Surplus, Autistic Matters, and Joy of Autism. And Effie Purple being Autistic Artist, Gen X Autistic, and Jason Connection kind of liked the post. The next one following from that is from Christian Armstrong. And he says, what I've learned so much about others through being neurodivergent and have friends who have been averant as well as being neurotypical. My encouragement to you is to embrace who you are regardless of the diagnosis. And in the post itself, he says, if I could go back in time and choose not to be diagnosed with autism, I would still choose to be diagnosed with autism today and continue to live my life as a neurodivergent individual. Just to recap, Stan Armstrong's a self-employed motivational speaker and from British Columbia, Vancouver, Canada. And his posts is always kind of, as we'd expect, kind of motivational sort of posts about, stuff like this that I'm just talking about. It's quite, at least it gives you a bit of a jar anyway, if not a total buzz. It's like, yep, I totally get that. You may not always agree with it, but it's always like a positive push-up, it feels.
I think all too often people's reaction to hearing that someone's got a diagnosis is, "Oh God, I'm so sorry." People see it. There's still this perception that it's a bad thing. I always make a point of congratulating anyone when they've received a neurodivergent diagnosis, because hopefully I'm not the only person that has that view, but I might be the only person that responds to it that way. They might be met with a whole load of responses of, "Oh God, I'm so sorry. Oh, how terrible for you." So it's really lovely to see this sentiment. It's a message that always bears repeating again and again and again, so that, yeah, people can see that it's not, it's not a negative thing. There's nothing wrong with being autistic. It's not nothing to be ashamed of, not a dirty word.
Yeah, but it's always more sensitive when it's kind of relating to children rather than adults. But obviously,
Mm,
with adults, it's the same. It depends on people's approach to you, and people, generally, being nice and intending to be nice, just say the wrong thing. I
mm,
can totally get what you're saying because it has been said before. Well, I mean, don't speak to a lot, but I know I'm aware of people that have, neurodivergent, ADHD specific as well, is like being diagnosed and getting that answer is such a lift
mm,
because you've that particular person had not a suspicion, but you know what I mean, like felt that that may be the case, but just got on with life because they had a family and all that. It's just like they weren't thinking about themselves and more about just getting on with it, and raising the family, etc. But as time went on, they kind of looked to see if they can get an answer on that now that they felt it was the appropriate moment. And if you went up to them and says, "Oh, I'm sorry about that," I think you get your head taken off because it's actually a good thing in their head, in
mm.
their eyes. And it certainly is.
Yeah. Like, it's always a good thing to get the user manual, isn't it? To get the
Mhm.
answer.
Yeah.
If there was a user manual.
Well, yeah, I suppose we all write our own, don't we? But, if you don't know what your neurotype is, and there's something you're struggling with, it's hard to know where to go to even start looking for an answer. At least if you've got a Robin Reliant and you've got the Haynes manual, you can look in the index and find out where, how I might be able to address this issue. If you don't know, you've got the entire internet to comb through, and there's a hell of a lot of rubbish on the internet.
When I had my diagnosis, I chose to tell quite a few different friends and people. And one of them particularly said, "I always knew there was something wrong with you, Joel."
I hope they were a good friend to phrase it like that.
They were a good enough friend for me to laugh. That's true.
Okay.
But I could imagine that being quite difficult for some people because
Yeah.
it does illustrate in your head that people that you know before you get a diagnosis will have always thought there's something that they can't quite put their finger on that is
Mm,
more different about you as an individual than the rest of their friends. So, when it comes up with a joke like that, it does kind of illustrate this thing and maybe owning the idea that we are autistic. It's a process, isn't it? You can't necessarily, having been given a diagnosis, suddenly find that to be the most positive thing in the world. It takes a while for people to come to that. I know on the internet, every second person who posts about it says that it was a revelatory moment for them, and it's always it's explained so many things. But I'm not convinced that happened in the first few days. I think that is a process.
yeah. I think it depends how you arrived at the diagnosis. I personally, I was 100% convinced before I got the bit of paper. So I didn't have there was no bombshell for me because it had erupted quite slowly over a matter of 2 years. I'd already processed and internalized it when I got that. So there wasn't any sort of like big post-diagnostic thing for me. But I know that if you weren't expecting it, you were on the fence, it could be a huge, yeah, a big, big impact.
Yeah, for me, it was revelation first, and then a year waiting until somebody was there to confirm it. But I was leading that person to that diagnosis anyway.
Mm.
Justin's texted to to put in some smiley faces and some thumbs ups for representing Canada on the post from Christian.
Yeah, we do get quite a lot from Canada. Well, I'm saying quite a lot. I say we share quite a lot from Canada. It's usually the same organisations, but it's great stuff to share. The next one is from Autistic Not Weird Community, and it's articles and insight about autism from Chris Bonello, an autistic author, advocate, speaker. What they say is, shout out to the other autistic children who offended people while unwrapping Christmas presents, because even though they were really happy with the present, the look on your face and the tone of your voice didn't match their expectations. To those who learned you're supposed to be more visibly happy, or else kind people would believe that you're being rude or ungrateful. And to those who still have performance anxiety about opening presents, even now as an adult. That's quite an interesting one. I'll just read the kind of stuff at the bottom as well. They said that 8 years ago, I surprised my autistic godson with tickets to Legoland. His response when we showed him the tickets was shy laughter, 20 seconds of silence, and then, can I have a Dr. Pepper? It was hilarious. And the reason it was hilarious was because his mum and I acknowledged exactly how ecstatic he was inside his head, and we didn't place any importance on the immediate performative responses. After all, it was quite a surprise to deal with in the moment. And 8 years on, the Can I Have a Dr. Pepper line is still a funny story that we tell with love and appreciation. Because that's how you do it. Mutual humour and warmth, rather than obsessing over the behaviour meets expectations.
I absolutely love that. I think I'm gonna have to like bookmark that post. I'm gonna have to share it with my whole family. And I think we might have to Can I Have a Dr. Pepper as code for I really like this, because yeah, I got that as a kid. I was trained, in what you're supposed to do when you open a present, because I did the autistic thing. I know I'm happy with it. Why do I need to put on a big bloody song and dance? And yeah, I mean, I've been performing this particular pantomime for many, many decades now. I don't have performance anxiety anymore. I have performance ennui, if anything. I'm just like, oh God, not this again on Christmas Day.
Okay. Is this when I get criticised for saying to people, maybe this is one of the times where we do put on a face and we do mask up and just say gratefully so Granny doesn't get offended, so that Granny knows that it's a nice thing that you gave them 20 quid in your...
It depends, I think, on the burden that's placing on the individual. I can do it, and I want to do it because I understand. I care about the people who've given me the gift getting the right feeling, because when you give someone a gift, you want them to like it, and I care about them having the experience that they ought to have. Lots of inverted commas going on here, but that doesn't mean that people who don't put on the experience don't care what the other person feels. I understand why you do the face dance and the response and the reaction, and I'm kind of happy to do it for that reason. But it would be really great if I didn't have to. But then, I'm able to do it. It doesn't take a lot out of me, so I do it. If it was going to be a real burden to me, and if it was going to really use up my brain budget, I wouldn't spend my brain budget on that if I didn't have that budget to spare.
And I understand that, it is a balance, and why should we have to constantly conform to exaggerated performances? I'm not one for performative behavior. I'm one for authentic and honest behavior. But I'm also saying there might be 95% of authentic behavior, but sometimes the 5% is just a way of making society work. It's kind of, I don't know, following the laws of the road in some ways. If we all decided which way we were going to drive down the dual carriageway, the chaos would ensue, and to some extent, just teaching kids that there is this performance. It's tiny. You don't have to overdo it. You don't have to exaggerate it, but just helping or empathizing with Granny to say, give her what she expects, which is a bit of a smile and say, oh, yeah, thanks, I'm happy, and some reassurance that they've got the right thing. It's a learning thing, isn't it?
I mean, it's social lubrication, is it? It's social grease. It helps the interaction run more smoothly. Personally, I think the person with the greater need for the emotional input or effective, I don't know, if it's going to drain somebody and it's going to ruin their Christmas having to put on this performance, I'd rather they didn't have to. If I knew that somebody was hamming it up and it was draining them in order to make me feel good about the present I'd given them, I'd end up feeling shit for having made them go through all of that performance. Yeah.
Without a doubt. And
Mm.
I fully agree with you. It's this 95%, 5% thing in my head.
Yeah. Why can't Granny get her head round the idea that just because the emotions aren't seen in the way she expects them, that they're not there?
Yeah, you're right. And Granny needs to understand the difference between different children that she has in her. So you're right about that. It does go both ways all the time. And Chris Pinella's right. And, the fact that they're able to understand and accept quite challenging and different behaviour, society's eyes, is a positive. I just don't go with this absolutism that some people in the neurodivergent communities have about masking being always inappropriate if it is that tiny little edge of masking that just helps other people get the right communication.
Yeah. I mean, that is what I do. I don't practice what I preach. If I'm preaching anything at all, I do the social grease. I put the mask on and do it because that's when I look at the interaction, when I look at the day as a whole, the better outcome is for me to mask up and give everyone what they want and do the, oh my God, this is fantastic thing. It would be nice though when I was a kid. Sorry?
On the converse, I'm saying the other thing, but I'm actually somebody who goes through almost all of my life without having to mask in any way, shape or form because of my lifestyle doesn't require masking. There's only very specific times when so my social battery is fine, So you're working from a point of view where, you have to do it more than you're comfortable with. And I'm working from a point of, why don't you do it every now and again? Because I don't have to do it very often,
Yeah. If you've got the capacity. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we are saying the same thing. If you have the capacity, fine. If you don't.
That's nice.
So this is the final post. This is from Awesome Training. Education, rights-based training and mentoring people about making positive impact with autistics. And what they've shared is about people, I think it's people going into their family tree. It says, if you can't find other autistic people in your ancestry, then you're not looking for the right things. Look for the entrepreneur, the artist, the woman who left her husband when such a thing was frowned upon, the person who spoke up for the oppressed, the caregiver, the innovator.
Spoke up for the oppressed, for snooty parents, that's a lesson too.
Yep.
The whistleblower.
It sort of reminds me of my own blog that I put on a week or so ago about the autistic sense of justice. And about feeling they're doing the right thing for the underdog and how things that you feel shouldn't be and you're trying to improve it bit by bit, and how many autistic people have the same sort of kind of mindset. So I think that's trying to encourage that, or just saying so. An interesting one. I'm just saying, don't look for the weirdo, look for the the more positive kind of stereotype.
I think your blog
Yeah.
was very good. And I like seeing the blog on the Facebook. I think what you're doing there is very valuable.
I think that's always worth. So another one of these statements is always bears repeating, because sometimes it's very easy to be steamrolled and gaslit and told what you think and told that you're wrong and no, it's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's not too loud and all that. And actually, do you know what? Fuck that. If I say it's too loud, it's too loud.
That's with the nursery school at 4, the teacher saying the warm wind was cold.
Yeah, we are more expert in how we experience the world than somebody else. We know more about our neurology than somebody else. We know more about how we are than somebody else, especially when that person is just observing what they can see from the outside, that's a really shallow surface level observation, you know. Maybe someone who's known us all our lives, our parents might know us fairly well, but they're never going to know us as well as we know ourselves. Whether we're experts or not in ourselves is a different matter, because we're always evolving and learning. I suppose we're about as expert as we can be in ourselves without time travel.
The other issue is that we might not be able to communicate what we know. Finding ways of communicating what we know seems to me to be the difficulty and the key to all this.
Yeah, we need some, I suppose, subject knowledge about other people, others of us broadly, to know what reference frame we're communicating is about.
That's a great way to conclude another discussion on the Facebook post. Thanks everybody being involved. This is Spectrum Voices Conversation, here every Sunday, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. UK time, and 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the United States. So thanks everybody, and I'll see you soon. So good night.
Good night.
Good night.